Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever felt totally exhausted just trying to keep up with too many people, or maybe you've wondered why massive organizations almost always become hopelessly bureaucratic, well, you're going to want to pay close attention. Today, we're unpacking a really massive evolutionary mystery. We're going on a journey from the hardwired biological limits of our social lives straight through to how those exact cognitive limits shape the very institutions and communities we build. So let's just dive right in. We're going to start with a deceptively simple question posed by British anthropologist Robin Dunbar, and it's a question that literally challenged 4 decades of primatology. He looked at primates, which of course includes us humans, and asked, why on earth are our brains so much larger than they strictly need to be? Like, what is all that extra hardware actually doing up there? And man, the paradigm shift that followed this was absolutely profound. Back in the 1970s, researchers basically believed brains were sized to handle ecological complexity. The thought was that our brains, specifically the neocortex, grew huge to help us figure out how to find food, hunt, and navigate really difficult terrain. But Dunbar's empirical work proved that orthodox answer completely wrong. He found that across primate species, neocortex size doesn't correlate with finding food at all. It correlates with the average size of the social group. So our brains didn't grow huge to forage, they grew massive to manage the intense, mind-boggling complexity of keeping track of who is who, who's friends with whom, and who owes whom a favor. Which brings us to the famous Dunbar's number, 150. Now, you've probably heard this number thrown around before, but it's widely cited and almost universally misunderstood. A lot of people think it just means the total number of people you know, but that is entirely incorrect. I mean, we can recognize thousands of faces. 150 means something much more specific and much more structural.
Right, so the crucial point here is that this number represents a hardwired cognitive ceiling. It's the absolute maximum number of people with whom you can hold a stable two-way relationship where you actually know exactly who each person is and how everyone relates to each other. Think of it like the bar test. If you bumped into them at a bar, would you feel perfectly comfortable pulling up a chair uninvited? And what's truly mind-blowing is that this empirical limit of 150 appears absolutely everywhere in human history. It's the size of hunter-gatherer bands, Neolithic villages, Roman military unit cohesion thresholds, even modern firm sizes. This is a biological limit, guys, not a cultural one.
Now, what's super interesting about this next concept is that your social network isn't just this flat bucket of 150 friends. You don't just dump everyone you know into one big category. Social life is actually deeply layered, and it operates on this really remarkable fractal pattern known as the rule of 3. When we actually break it down, you get this amazing, comprehensive view of your entire social universe. Notice how each of these nested circles multiplies by roughly 3. You've got your inner 5, that's your support clique, the shoulders to cry on during a crisis. Then it expands to 15, your sympathy group, the people whose loss would deeply upset you. Then 50 close friends for personal celebrations, and finally that 150 ceiling of meaningful contacts for big things like weddings and funerals. Each rung of this ladder governs a completely different kind of intimacy and requires a totally different level of cognitive effort. And the math behind all this time cost? It shows exactly why you literally can't have 150 best friends. Time is the ultimate currency of connection. It's not about how much affection you have. It's about pure arithmetic. Your closest 5 people demand up to 50% of your total social time. The next 10 take another 20%. By the time you get past 50 people, there is barely any time left on the clock. This math shows exactly why technology and social media can stretch out the outer edges of people you vaguely recognize, but they absolutely cannot artificially expand those deeply time-costly inner layers. You just can't hack the biological cost of true friendship.
To put into perspective why this matters so deeply to you personally, Dunbar's massive 2021 research synthesis revealed something just staggering. Navigating these nested social circles effectively is quite literally a matter of life, death, and longevity. Across every health outcome studied, the quantity and quality of your friendships influence your lifespan more than any single behavioral factor out there, except quitting smoking. So social connection isn't just nice to have, it is literal biological armor. Section 2. The gossip paradigm shift. So let's shift gears a bit. Because if time is so incredibly scarce, how on earth do humans actually manage to maintain those larger outer layers of 50 or 150 people without completely running out of hours in the day? Well, the answer's probably going to surprise you. We really need to reframe a somewhat toxic stigma right here. Gossip is not just idle, mean-spirited chatter. In the evolutionary sense, it is the vital survival mechanism of large groups. Gossip is officially defined as the exchange of social information about absent third parties. It's exactly how we figure out who is trustworthy, who reciprocates, and who cheats. In fact, studies show that a staggering 2/3 of all human conversation is this exact kind of social information exchange.
Think about it. Primates spend up to 20% of their day physically picking parasites off each other. That one-on-one grooming is how they maintain bonds. But as human groups grew, we couldn't possibly spend all day picking bugs out of 150 people's hair. There literally isn't enough time in the day. So human language and gossip emerged as an incredibly efficient upgrade to that. It's essentially verbal grooming. It's one-to-many. It allows us to bond with several people simultaneously and rapidly track reputations across the whole group. Moving on to our final section, designing for the mind. Now that we really understand our biological hardware, the exact numbers, the time constraints, and our verbal grooming tools, we can actually apply this directly to the real world. We can use this cognitive geometry to build dramatically better workplaces, communities, and networks for collective action. Just look at how successful collective action networks organically align with our brains. Take the self-help group ecosystem, for example. Through decades of trial and error in the field, these organizations evolved to perfectly track our cognitive limits. A core group of 15 works purely on direct reciprocity, right? Because everyone can monitor everyone. Jump to 50 and a common bond still holds it together. But hit 150, what they call the cluster level federation, and you hit the cliff. At this exact point, personal knowing completely maxes out. Because the real danger zone hits the exact moment an organization crosses that 150-person ceiling. The rules of the game change entirely. You can no longer rely on people just knowing each other. Formal hierarchy becomes absolutely mandatory. Written rules have to step in and replace informal bonds. Trust goes from direct to indirect. And you absolutely must implement gossip substitutes, things like dashboards, ledgers, newsletters, just to scale that verbal grooming we talked about. If an organization ignores this cognitive reality, Dunbar notes that it isn't radicalism, it's simply design malpractice. So the ultimate mantra for organizational design, staring us right in the face from all this anthropological data, is simply this: split before you stretch. When a group hits its cognitive layer ceiling, you must split it into nested human-scale units, rather than trying to painfully stretch it into a broken, unmanageable superscale unit. Following these structural steps ensures you're actually designing for the human mind. Step 1, honestly assess your active member count and locate your Dunbar layer. Step 2, match your leadership span perfectly to that layer. For instance, no manager should ever have more than 15 direct reports, which keeps them safely inside the natural sympathy group. And step 3, strategically introduce middle layers to split groups before they break. 2 human-scale units of 150 will outperform 1 messy, stretched unit of 300 every single time. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to evaluate your own workplace, your own community, or hey, even your own social calendar today. Look around you and ask, is your institution actually sized to its cognitive layer? Are you working with a deeply ingrained biological grain of human nature, or are you fighting hopelessly against it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this fresh lens helps you navigate your social world and your organizational life with a whole new sense of clarity.